Oh, I would like to give you a quick demonstration of the Proline BBS before we get into more technical. Now, Proline was a very powerful bulletin board system for the Apple II series. It was developed between 1984 through 1994 by Morgan Davis. Now, my Proline BBS is internet enabled on port 6523. 6500 should be obvious 23 because we're going to telnet in. I am logging in as the guest user, which has no password but does have some limited capabilities here. I will show you the administration and power user side a little bit later. So we start off with a text menu. I've never used Proline back in the day. I have used a couple BBSs and they were rather similar to this with the text menu system. The ANSI graphic crowd, I'm sure, is not impressed. So the conference system is a message board. Conferences, there are two kinds of conferences, local and networked. Local conferences exist only within your particular Proline site. I suspect most bulletin board systems work that way, in that their messages never leave the system. A network conference gets more interesting because you can send and receive messages from other Proline sites. So a Proline site can dial into another Proline site and use the mail delivery subsystem software to transfer messages and email and even files back and forth between Proline sites. And there was also a Unix version, the Unix mail delivery subsystem, which lets Unix pretend it's a Proline node, so you can dial into your Unix server and transfer messages back and forth, and then the Unix server will can actually act as an internet gateway to send and receive email across the wider internet or Usenet posts across the wider internet. Now, my system automatically dials into a Linux server every hour and transfers files back and forth. Mostly that's just retrieving new Usenet posts, but it could also send out messages as well. Here, all the conferences are networked through Usenet and NTP through my Linux gateway. Let's see. So I have three NNTP feeds. The first one, Retro, is a 30-year delay feed. And we're going to look at CompSys Apple as it was 30 years ago. And this is CompSys Apple. It's not CompSys Apple II. That didn't happen until 28 years ago when there was a great reorganization. So 30 years ago, Kermit was a big deal. Not too many people were posting about their GSs. There was some activity, but most people didn't have theirs yet. You may recognize yourself if you're old enough and were posting back then. Let's just read. I can't reply. Well, just look at a post or two here. Vaporware. Okay. Next, we have a contemporary Usenet feed. This one does support posting. If you read CompSys Apple II or CompSys Apple II Pro and check carefully, you may have noticed that I have posted a couple messages through Proline to Usenet. And I think that's enough of that. Finally, we have RSS. There is an NNTP server at gween.org which converts RSS feeds and mailing lists into NNTP newsgroups. So we can see what's happening at A2 Central over Usenet. Oz KFest is now open for registration. Okay, the second thing I'd like to show you is electronic mail. Now you can send messages to local users easily enough, and the guest user cannot, but actual users can send email to other users. The guest user can write a message to the sysop. Now, since we have an internet gateway, we can transfer messages across the internet if we needed to. My particular Linux server only has a local mail transfer agent, but I could write email messages from Proline and they would get transferred to users on the local Linux server. If you're networked to another Proline site, of course, you can send messages, email to users on the other Proline site. Okay, finally, I want to show you the file library. Now, the file library uses a card catalog library metaphor, and it's a little hard to get into at first. Perhaps not as intuitive as some bulletin board system file libraries. I have preloaded a couple files in here just to show that it can be done. But if you need to get files, there are better ways to get them. So I don't have much to say about that. And that is Proline.